Hello, everyone, and welcome to another astoundingly incredible episode of Empowered Conversations, where I have amazing conversations with extraordinary people who are out doing beautiful things in the world in service to others. And guys, let me tell you, this guy, Mike Hartman, that I have on my show today, it's such an honor. He's such an incredible human being. And just a little bit about him, just in case you've never heard of Mike Hartman. He's a former professional athlete who not only overcame the odds and fought his way through many hardships, like we all have, he made it to the NHL, and his team, the New York Rangers, took home the Stanley Cup while he was playing for them. Mike has been a part of championship teams at every level in his 17-year professional career. He has also worked with Team USA to help America's athletes reach the pinnacle of their sport. Mike Hartman is a high-performance mindset coach who was certified with the National Academy of Sports Medicine and has been certified in the Axiological profiles, behaviors, DISC, and Motivators. Mike Hartman has developed a success-proven system and applied these concepts of a world-class athlete to leaders in mid-sized businesses and Fortune 500 companies, as well as major league athletes, weekend warriors, and to the women's Olympic ice hockey team. Whoop, whoop. The host of the Mike Hartman Show is where he speaks with extraordinary people himself who possess the mindsets of champions. All right, everybody, drum roll, please, and help me in welcoming Mike Hartman.
Hello.
What is up, Mike? How are you doing today?
Well, with that introduction, man, I might have a big head when I leave my office here.
Oh yeah, we'll be able to get to the door. Nah, you know, you're actually a very humble person. One of the things I love and respect
so great
about you.
to be with you. I know we've had hundreds of conversations over the years. It takes us back, and it's just great to be here with you, Steph. I always call you Stephanie. Can I call you Steph Funny?
You can call me, yeah, Funny. You know, my best friend Laura gave me that name, golly, back in the 90s, because I'm such a big honking silly goob, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah, again, thank you for joining me and my audience today. So, you know, it's funny because we met at Whole Foods, and I love to talk about Whole Foods, and people make fun of Whole Foods, whole wallet, you know, and I always say, well, you can invest in healthy food or you can pay the doctor. But wasn't it like, it was like, I think 2016, and I was there, and I was about to graduate from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition.
Right.
And I think I was talking to my accountability coach, Elizabeth Colvin, who's also been on my podcast. And I just remember you were sitting to the right of me. You were there eating lunch as well, because I loved eating lunch off the hot bar and the salad bar at Whole Foods. Yeah. But like, just tell me about that interaction. Like, what do you remember about that?
I remember, well, I was sitting right next to you, and you were talking about nutrition and fitness and everything you did. You might have been with one of your friends. I can't remember who you were with. And I said, wow, I said, I'm in a similar business. Tell me about yourself. Then you said you also want to be a life coach. And I said, well, I've been a coach. I've been in the fitness business. Here's my card. And at that time, we did some certification stuff as well. And
with behaviors and motivators.
Yeah. And then next thing I know, you got certified in behaviors and motivators and axiology. And at then that time, just maybe not too long after that, a gentleman approached me about taking over my company with us. And that's where they brought you in. And
Better Life Training. Yes. Because that was what you had owned for 14, 15 years.
Yeah. Longer. Yeah.
Yeah. And longer. Okay. Yeah. And I remember, you know, you and I were working together, and then he came in, and we, you know, and this was going to be like a big, incredible opportunity. And that was, that was just such an incredible experience. That was such an empowering and inspiring thing for me to be a part of, you know, going into the office every day, brainstorming with you of how we were going to do all this and bring all these coaches in and just create this platform where we could spread that message that we hold in our hearts, you know, to the world in a much bigger, grander way. So, you know, Mike, I usually start with, you know, asking my guests, tell me about like your epiphanies, your journeys, your life experiences, good and bad, that brought you to where you are today. And one of my favorite stories, and I actually share this story quite often, that I love about my favorite story about you is, tell me about the story. It's about having to do with your music teacher.
Okay.
I guess, were you in junior high or high school?
Yeah, I was in junior high school, 6th grade, 6th or 7th grade. And I had a music teacher that one day said to everybody, I want you to stand up and tell us what you want to be when you grow up. So one person stands up and says, well, I think I want to be a doctor. I mean, we're in 6th grade. I joke, my kids, my son's graduating college. When my daughter graduated from NYU, she didn't know what she wanted to do. So in 6th grade, what do you want to be when you grow up? And one person says, well, I want to be a fireman. I want to be a plumber, whatever it was. And I stood up and I said, I want to be a hockey player. And I don't think for some reason, maybe I was not a cocky kid, but for some reason he said, sit down. He says, that's impossible. And I said, I don't believe it's impossible. He goes, I'm going to repeat it again. Look at my lips. It's impossible. And I said something really bad. And my father just wanted to beat my butt when I got home. But I said, Mr. Novak, it's impossible for you. He said, what did you just say? I said, why is it impossible? It's impossible for you. He goes, well, it's 1 in millions. And even if you want to be in a rock band, he goes, chances are you'll never do it. And you'll never do it. And I'm going to say, I disagree with you. So he goes, I'm going to see you in the hall after. Actually, I went down with him. He says, could you please go in the hall? And I had an argument, and I didn't let my guard down. And to this day, I don't regret it. But I say, Mr. Novak didn't mean anything. I look back and I'm not angry with him. He didn't scar me. But I loved when people told me I was going to fail. So, and not that, okay, now I did it. I'm shoving it in your face. I've learned from that. So it's not about, look what I did. It's more like, at that time, plus I wasn't even playing at the highest level in my youth league. But in my mind, I had that vision and that dream, and I saw myself doing it. And you talk about that in your coaching, right? If you don't see yourself doing it, nobody will.
Right. So
I saw myself. And I would never let anybody steer me in a different direction. I said, I'll fight you. And my parents told me, hey, you know what? Chances are you're not going to make it. Yeah, we love you, but you got to focus on school. But it worked out.
Mike, I think the most important thing about that story, and this is something I would like to as well, just give my input on. It's not that it was impossible to be an NHL player for Mr. Novak. Anything, and I have a philosophy, and I absolutely 100% fervently believe this. If anything is possible for anyone, anything is possible for anyone. But you have to have the mindset and the heart set. Mr. Novak had the mindset and the heart set of a music teacher.
Correct.
You truly had the mindset and the heart set to be a pro, and you chose a pro hockey player.
Right.
So oftentimes people that care for us will impose their own limiting beliefs, their own limitations about what they think is possible for themselves onto others. And they think that they're doing it out of love or out of protection. Just like you mentioned your parents, do this, go be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a plumber, be anything other than try to strive for a dream. But when you hold a dream so fervently and passionately with every ounce of your being within you, it is possible.
Right.
Because you look at the Oprah, look at Tony Robbins, look at some of these like people that I personally hold in such high regard. They have also been beaten down. They've experienced pull out the rug from under me situations. Oprah was told, I think when she was 23 by a news station or one of her first video type jobs, you'll never make it. Right. You'll never make it. And if she had believed that, if she had allowed that to imprint upon her heart and her mind, we wouldn't have Oprah. Right. And it's like, I love that you believed so fervently in yourself, because where did that dream come from to want to be a pro hockey player?
I'm going to show you something. This is important.
Yes, please do. And we've got some. Okay, we've got some comments, but they're Facebook user, so I'm not sure if you are. It doesn't show your name. Hey, Stephanie McPherson, great to see you, Mike. Thank you for joining. Let us know who you are and where you're joining in from. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm going to share something. So I wrote a book, but not to make it a popular book, like a kid's book. We put it on Amazon just like anybody can. But what you're talking about here is what you talked about my 6th grade teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this gentleman here, can you see?
Yes, I can. Yes. Yeah. Is that you right there, top left?
No, yeah. But I'm trying to show this. That's my 5th grade teacher.
Yeah.
And his name is Tom McPhillips. And this is what we have to focus on. Tom McPhillips was my 5th grade teacher, one of the best people I've ever met. Outside of my family, he was one of the first adults ever to seriously help me to dream to be a professional athlete. His trademark move to students was quite different. He would never scream or yell, but he always helped. He pounded a bowling pin was his trademark, but because he used to he wouldn't yell, but he'd pound the bowling pin. You always knew where you stood with Mr. McPhillips, but he always encouraged us to do our best and then get better. I golfed with Mr. McPhillips later in my life. Mr. McPhillips was a part of my life. I can't say the same thing about my 6th grade teacher, but this man was amazing. He checked on me later in my life. So do we think about, I did that podcast about the 6th grade teacher, but I'll never forget this man.
Right.
And I can't and I wrote this book in 2001 and I just did my podcast. So for me, it was more about, wow, I've had people that believed in us. And that's what I tell my kids. Listen, people are going to bring you down. Mm-hmm. People are going to step on you. There's evil, bad energy, people that just love to see you fail. I had a friend of mine, I would never say his name, and he said, man, I have a job at professional hockey, but people are just waiting for me to get fired. I said, isn't that crazy? We have to live like that. But I teach my kids who like my son, I just talked to him yesterday. I said, you know what? I believe in you. Doesn't matter who else doesn't, but I believe in you and I love you and I support you. And if you don't make it, as long as you could look yourself in the mirror. Now, if I didn't make it, but I worked as hard as I can, I could look myself in the mirror and say, I did everything I could to make it. So it's not about making it, because all of us try. Doesn't mean, so I don't look at myself, but I knew I had to give everything I had and leave nothing on the table. And you're still a champion. Just because you make it does not make you a champion.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I want to share that.
Yes. So it's the mindset. So, let me further expound upon that. So what you're saying is, okay, so it's not, it does help. And it really does feel good when people support us and cheer for us and believe in us. But think about this, and this is what the point I wanted to drive home. When you're shining your light and you're being the best, most 100% present of Mike Hartman that Mike Hartman has to offer, you are giving people the permission to do that for themselves. Okay, haters don't hate you because there's a reason to hate you. They hate how they feel about themselves when in the presence, because they don't realize all that they possess and have, all the gifts and the special, what makes them unique. And that's one of the reasons, the biggest reason why I call myself a life and a mindset coach, because I want to transform the mindset and the heart set for the self-worth and self-power development over one's on life. Because if people are so busy worshiping their own, I'm not worshiping, maybe that's the wrong word, but okay, but like being and realizing their own freaking fabulousness, then they're not going to be intimidated by other people's fabulousness and being in their light. And that's what I love about you, is that you had this dream to be a pro hockey player, but that doesn't define Mike Hartman. That's not just who Mike Hartman is. That's just one of his, bucket list achievement.
Let's talk about you for a minute. Let's talk about you.
This ain't about me, but this isn't a power conversation. So.
Right. Well, we keep it open. So there was a lady here. I have a Regis office, is where I'm renting space from. And this lady said, oh my gosh, I didn't know you knew Stephanie. I saw that you're coming on in Facebook. I said, yes, I will be on the show. And she says, boy, I volunteer with her. We help the homeless. Yes. So it's about giving back. So my point being, that says a lot about you, that while you're out there giving back, and I'm going to admit something that you've never would believe I'm going to tell you this. So when I retired as an athlete, I woke up one day and I said, what am I going to do? And I had money, but then I said, what am I going to do? I have to find something to replace that. And I never did. But it wasn't until not even too long ago, I'm afraid to admit it, that I started saying, okay, how can I serve many? And even now we give back to mental health. And it gives me a reason to give back. And I donate my class for free to anybody, no questions asked. If you're going to be real and say, I can't afford anything, I give it to you. My point is, things feel better. Things are more natural when I'm not chasing the dollar. Because Mike Hartman used to chase the dollar and he got nowhere. But as soon as I learned that, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to help many. I don't look at, you're not timed in a coaching call, right? I used to time you 15 years ago. Oh, your hour's up. No, let's talk. We're not here. I'm not a therapist. So when I learned that, my life has changed, and learning how to listen better to people's needs instead of my own. So you might say, oh, Mike lived this perfect life. He was an athlete. No, I had an identity crisis when I was done. I woke up and said, now what do I do? I didn't want to be a coach. I didn't want to sit on the bus in the minors at 20 years old. I had 2 coaching offers in pro, going through a divorce 18 years ago or so. I don't remember now. And we have a good relationship today, but there's no such thing as an easy divorce. My point is, we all go through these in life, right? Ups
Absolutely.
and downs. So I've learned to not get too high and not get too low, but stay neutral, stay neutral. And it took, you say the word mindset, it took my mindset to say, you know what? And I have days like I get stressed. I think about family, kids, but okay, take a step back, breathe. Like I watched you did some breathing techniques before your show. All of these things help your mind, body. And that's like, I walk like in New York City. I love this. So I'm walking, it's busy. This is great. But man, I walk on the Greenway here and I go, wow, this is great.
Yes.
So I love what you're doing, Stephanie. You have so much passion, and you're interviewing a lot of people. I had you on my little podcast, but it's because you care. So I'm talking about you. You care, and you have that energy. Whether some people like that energy or not, it doesn't matter. You have that energy to do it every day. And it's like I told my son, if people don't like you for that energy, you don't need them.
Right.
I can count on my one hand how many close friends I have from high school.
Yeah.
And then when I made it, it was like, wow, but I didn't change.
Right. Everybody has their own life aspirations and goals, but what was unique about you is that you went for them. You see what I'm saying? It's like so many people do allow the lack of belief within themselves to dictate how they carry out their life, and they just listen to what they're told, either from their parents or their peers or their teachers or their coaches, and it becomes, okay, I just want to get by. I just want to, graduate high school, go to college, get a job, get married, have the kids, instead of like, what do I really want? What lights me up about my life? What lights me up? And I've heard this many times, and I love to share this, but what you love doing. Because we all have this innocent loving about what we want to do when we're children. What you love doing or what you enjoyed is part of your purpose as an adult, or part of what you're supposed to be doing as an adult. And so many people, they lose that joy for what was authentic to them. And they just wind up existing. And again, so like even for athletes such as yourself, like you talked about having an identity crisis. And I know you've shared, through our many conversations, that professional athletes, or some of the highest of the highest, what we could perceive from the outside looking in as achievement. But so many people like retire from just any job. Right. And that job or that life was was the defining, that it just defined who they were. And then they wind up taking their lives, and that's where the cultivation of self-worth, self-love, real like passions about life and what lights you up are so important to cultivate. So you're living, and because I like that you're talking about, like, you don't want to be too high and too low, but sometimes, like for me, I'm like, whoa, I get so excited about stuff, but then I can crash. And no, I'm not bipolar, but you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
it's like, I'm not happy all the time. I've had pull out the rug from under me situations, but through my own process of my entire adult life, cultivating that self-awareness, knowing what I want and why I want it, has enabled me to persevere through these horrific situations that hurt, because some things hurt. I get it. But it's about what's important. I want to be on the other side of this. I know what I want. I know, what lights me up. And it's about living a joy-filled life, not being happy all the time, but living a joyful life. And that's, what I see, through you when of what you've done since you retired from being a pro hockey player. So, so go ahead.
Well, no, I'll take it back to the reason is, and listen, I give my parents all the credit because my father was the old school and my mother was like the very calm person.
Yeah.
But I looked forward to, as a kid, to when my father came home in Detroit, and we lived in Oak Park, Michigan. It's called, a little city, and we had this big tree in the backyard, and my father would play catch with me. And as I get better, he'd throw the ball really high in the tree. I had to look for it. People thought he was crazy. That ball could hit me in the head.
Yeah.
But he would help me. And that I couldn't wait for him to get home from work so I can go play catch. And we lived behind a baseball field, like 50 yards was a baseball field.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I think I was very fortunate to have loving parents, but my father always knew where I stood. And he said, you might play 1 year, you might play 2. When I made it, you might play 10. And I share the story. It's a lot of we do is about stories. As I remember, I bought a car when I got my signing bonus. I made more money in bonuses as a player. So I got this bonus and I bought a car, my first contract. My father said, perfect. You bought a GMC Jimmy, an American car that he wanted from Detroit. And it was a red one, 18,000. Good job. And then the next year I was in the playoffs and I made a little bit more money and I got the car. And remember, I already made it. So, you think you're kind of cool. So I go to the dealership on the way home. I drove home from Buffalo to Detroit. I stopped off at the dealership and they upsold me on a $5,000 more car, $4,000 or $5,000, because I had the tire in the back and it rattled. I didn't like it. Now the tire's underneath and I had the digital dash. I drive to my dad's office and my father looks out the window with the sticker. He goes, what is that? I said, I just bought a car, Dad. He goes, what? And we grew up like, he goes, what? You just got a car last year? Yeah, but Dad, this has the digital dashboard. It's only $4,000, $4,000 or $5,000. He pulled me by my ear because he had all these employees. He goes, come on, Mr. Superstar. And he pulled me and he took me outside and he goes, see my coworker's car? Now in Detroit, you're allowed to do this. You're allowed to take the tape and tape the bumper. Okay. That lady has 4 kids. Pulls me over here. That lady couldn't make it to work yesterday. She had a flat tire and doesn't have any money. That lady over there that has a car, she's struggling just to pay for food. And Mr. Hockey Player goes out. I go, Dad, it was only $4,000. He goes, I'm disgusted. And that's how I was raised. So it's not like, don't ever act like you're better than anybody.
Oh,
be smart with you might make money now. How long will it last? But that's what he taught me. I was 20 years old and I learned, I'll never forget that. I just told that recently on my show because I've learned that to never, just be balanced. And he always kept me in check. So that's the stuff that my parents always, no matter what, listen, you don't need something just because it's a little bit nicer. Right. So, and I think what happens is, to answer it's a long side of it. Sometimes players are told how good they are when they're 15. Oh, you're great. You're a superstar. Then they play college hockey at even 16 or 17, like this one player, Joe Murphy, if you look him up. So Joe Murphy then gets drafted by the Red Wings, and he's the first player picked overall. Multi-millionaire, and he's living under a bench in Kenora, Ontario, I think there. And it's sad. And he was the first. Everyone's trying to go there to help him. Got Players Association is going there. And the guy was a good looking guy, started doing heroin and drugs and shooting stuff in his arms. And it's sad. And you would think, if you look at him online, Joe Murphy, first overall pick, 1980, must be around my 86, my age. He's living under a bench. He had kids. We're talking multimillionaire. And it's like, how does this happen? And that's why I don't know how that happens. It's sad, but you're told how great you are sometimes. And then the inevitable hits.
Yeah.
That's the extreme.
So did that happen after he retired? Or
it progressed, I think. Over many years, he started, I think he got divorced and a lot of things happened. And this is known. It's a known story. It's not. And it breaks my heart. Like this guy, I knew him a little bit. Like sharp looking, pro. Yeah. Won Stanley Cups, he had it all. And to wake up now and gosh, I talked to one of my former teammates and they say, we just hope he survives. We're trying to help him.
And it's kind of to my earlier point that his self-worth and value was defined in that and that only. And he never, or at this point, is he still alive?
He is. And
okay.
So
he still has a chance. He still has the chance. If you're not dead, you still have the chance to realize that worth, that true worth and value is not in what you're doing or what you've achieved, but who you are. And that is why so many, as I mentioned earlier, people become depressed or go into a funk, or wind up taking their own lives or resorting to drugs when they don't realize that, okay, now that that's over, now what? Right. Well, realizing your own, again, unique way and your worth and value and what lights you up. So it's like, well, nothing lights me up anymore. So that's very sad. What?
You'll like this. In Charlotte, North Carolina, a gentleman by the name of Leonard Wheeler, great guy. He had a great program and it was called the Professional Athletes Association. And I never went. And I didn't go for the reason why, because sometimes I'd leave feeling, man, I feel this is depressing. Like I'm not an athlete anymore. I never wear my Stanley Cup rings. But I'm proud of what I did. In fact, I have one picture hanging in my house, and Cheryl says we got to put more pictures up because great memories. I did stuff with the Rangers the last 3 years. But my point is, Leonard had this thing at the Palm in South Park, and all these businesses
love the Palm.
We would eat there for free, and all these businesses would come. Businessmen, like the place was packed. And part of our job is to get up, introduce us, and tell us who we are. So guy stands up. Hey, I played for the Carolina Panthers. My name is so-and-so. Another guy stands up. Hey, I was a professional basketball player in the NBA. Oh, I played baseball. So I get up and I say, hey, my name is Mike Hartman. I'm a performance coach, and I'm here helping people. And the one guy stops me in the back, not Leonard. He goes, wait. Tell him what you did. I said, well, I also have done some training. I love fitness. I got certified by the National Academy. He goes, no, tell him what you did. I said, that's what I did. He goes, come on, Mike. Okay, I played hockey. I did that. And I left after. And I realized that, but I am not a player. And I had I had an identity crisis just like everybody else. But even the top guys in the world that play, they wake up because think about it, for so many years, especially in the NHL, you get treated really well. And you go to the hotel, you eat well, everything's great. Then you wake up and it's gone.
Right.
Wait a second. I'm supposed to go to the rink tomorrow. No, I'm supposed to wait. I used to take a nap 2 to 4.
Right.
I'll share something with you that no one knows. Most athletes, if you talk to them today that played hockey, they still nap between 2 and 4 because that was the thing we did. They take a nap. So I used to take a nap sometimes, and Cheryl says, what are you doing? I said, we used to sleep. I said, yeah, you were an athlete 20 years ago. What are you doing taking a nap? I said, well, I just always felt
rest is
2
important.
to 4. Yeah. But anyways, that's
but Mike, that's what's beautiful about the journey of your life is that when you had the identity crisis after you retired, that caused calls you to seek out what else you could do in service to others. And what I love about some part of that story you told about your dad when you were a little kid, and he would throw that ball up. Okay. And maybe you've not thought about this, or maybe you have, you probably have, but you would catch it and then he would throw up a little bit higher. You'd catch it and you'd throw up a little bit. So subconsciously that was imprinted upon you that you could keep achieving, you could keep going. So I think that part played a huge part in you going, oh, I can, but even on a subconscious level where you may not have even realized that your dad was doing something really good for your soul.
Yeah.
And your thinking of yourself and your ability to achieve. And, going back to what you were just saying about like when you stood up at that restaurant and said, I help people, I do, and like, because that is what you do right now. That's part of what you do right now. Oh, but tell them about you being, the hockey player. Yeah. And that's something so amazing, incredible to be proud of. It's like, and that is a huge part of the gift of Mike Hartman, is the person who did achieve something that his heart and his mind wanted. But also now where he's taken that and he's spread it into other areas of his life of what he can now inspire and empower others to do for themselves. And it's not, because not everybody wants to be a pro hockey player, or not everybody wants to be, a newscaster or an actor or an actress or somebody famous or somebody doing, but it's like you could be an accountant and still have a beautiful purpose about your life and still live your life outside of what you do for money generating, that lights you up and inspires other people.
Yeah. My mother and father.
Jodelle says, take the nap. Nothing wrong with the nap. It's refreshing. Absolutely. Rest is so important as a part of the process of living a healthy, balanced life.
Well, she was kidding. Cheryl was kind of like, but I do. So don't get me wrong. Like, I tell stories all the time. In fact, Cheryl says I've heard that story before. I tell a lot of hockey stories because I
love Cheryl.
Yeah, it was some of the best times of my life. I talked to my buddies on the phone and we talked stories a lot because it brought back some great memories. And I talked to even my own brother, we and sister, we would talk about stories. So yeah, that's something I love. But I think I just learned a lot from my parents, but my father would throw the ball in the trees, and my mother, she'd play catch too. I throw it back to my mother, and my grandfather used to throw us the plastic one, and I used to be lefty and would hit. But what he did was he would teach me and guide me. Hey, get under the ball. Like don't catch it like this, like you're a hot dog. Get under it and keep it simple. Yeah. So keep it simple.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I learned, and I'll share you a little simple thing that I just did the other day, and it made me feel so good. But so I'd get under the ball. My father would say, "You caught it, but still, you want to make it easy." So I had all these clothes. I was cleaning out my closet. There was clothes that I had for 5-6 years now and there. They're just sitting there. So I minimalized, and I've learned that. And boy, it make me feel good. So I got all this stuff out of my closet, and that's people say, "What the heck? Why are you bringing that up?" Because it made me feel better. And I kept it simple. Now I know I don't need 12 of the same looking shirts almost. I need like 3 of them. So that's things that I like to do now is minimalize, keep it simple. My business, I always try different things. And sometimes you just have to stick to that one thing.
Right.
And, we try to add to our business. And every time I would try to do a little bit of this extra adding to the business, then the other part's going to fall. So I just try to keep it as focused and narrow as I can. And I've got to take my own advice in coaching. If you're going full speed ahead, you're going north, you're going in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're south, you're going backwards and you need a lot of help. Sometimes we're sideways, east and west. Yeah. So as long as I'm kind of going full speed ahead, and we have little detours, like you remember. So that's how I try to live my life. I can't, like, I was just telling somebody today, somebody is a retired athlete. And I said, no one really, they care. They love what you did a long time ago, but it isn't going to get you business today. It's not going to help you in today's world. So you have to do something income producing that's going to serve a purpose, that's going to help others and help you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to solve a problem. And
Yes.
until you, whether it's in sales or sports or whatever you do, you have to solve that problem. And I even take my own advice, right, which I have to, and say, you know what, I have to solve that problem. And that's my model. I just keep it simple in solving problems.
Yeah, people don't care what you do. They care why you're doing it and how that affects or makes their life easier.
Right.
And God, I lost my train of thought, but you mentioned it was something you just said. It was about, like the guy you were talking to. And he's like, I'm doing this. And it's like, what the advice you gave him, figure out your why. I think that the important thing here is figuring out your why. It's not about obtaining something. So, and can stay in on that trajectory. It's like, why are you moving in the direction that you're moving? Why do you want what you want? And that's so important. It's important to know what you don't want, but it's more important to focus on what you do want. But then under that is that why. And that why is what keeps you on that track of moving forward and not allowing these sideways, pull out the rug from under me situations to derail you.
Right.
And, and that's, just in the time that I've known you since 2016, you've seen me experience certain setbacks and I've seen you experience certain setbacks, but the mindset is still there of, I'd rather die living my life, being lit up by life and living on purpose and with intention.
Right. You said that quote earlier before you brought up to me, just before we started this, about you'd rather do something and
I'd rather die living.
Right.
Than live dying.
So the sports model is, do you play to win or do you play not to lose? A lot of people, I'm going to play not to lose. That's not right. You know what? We play to win. Mm-hmm. And now we always don't.
I love that.
Right?
I love that.
Yeah. So I used to say, God, do we play on the perimeter? Like, yeah, I'm nervous to do it. You know why you're nervous? Because you're afraid to fail and you're afraid what people might think. Where I believe you just have to go for whatever it is.
Absolutely.
That you want. Oh boy, you've done so many of these different things. Yeah, but you know what? I'm going to keep trying. In sports, Michael Jordan, look, all the stuff he went through.
Thank you for bringing him up, because he's one of those people, and I've said this for over 20 years, you can't teach Michael Jordan. You have to be Michael Jordan. And what that means is the entity of who he is as a human being. And again, his why, his passion for, if you want to be one of the top basketball players or one of the best basketball players in the world, yeah, he's a reference, but you don't compare yourself to him, because then you're only comparing yourself to what he has the ability to do, and your ability may supersede. So always, but again, know your why.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a great story in my eyes, and it's in my book. You're pulling stuff out of the book,
and I've not even read it.
No, I don't even do anything with this.
But I love to.
It's nowhere. It's funny, but when I was, I'll find it here. So when I was young, I was like, I don't know how old I was. 13 years old. Okay, no, 15. And I had an idol named Wayne Gretzky, and the best guy in the world. So it's funny you brought this up. So, and I just happened to have this today because I was just doing something with it, and I didn't even plan on bringing this. And I don't sell the book, so no one can. Hey, where's the book? I don't sell the book. But what happened was, when I was 13, I met this agent named Gus Spadali, and then because I knew he represented one of my friends in Canada, my camp counselor. So then, when I was 14, 15, my father called him and said he might be moving to Canada. And he says, well, listen, I could pick him up at the airport, but he has to wear a collared shirt. Well, what the hell? So, okay. So, well, he represented Wayne Gretzky, but he picked me up and surprised me. He goes, do you golf? I said, no, I grew up off of, I couldn't afford to golf as a kid. I didn't grow up golfing. He goes, well, we're picking up, we're going to go meet somebody today. And here it is. I was fifth. Can you,
Yeah, you're on the right?
The little guy with the big tube socks, the goofy kid.
Big tube sock, you're still a big goob.
Well, no, I'm going to tell you what you said to me. So what you said was, I met Wayne Gretzky, and Wayne says, let's have lunch first. So we have lunch. We're in Oakville, Ontario, where the big golf thing is every year, the PGA. Mm-hmm. And Wayne Gretzky has his golf balls with his name on it. And I sat there and I said, hey, I can't believe I'm here with you. He goes, well, tell me about yourself. I said, well, I play hockey in Detroit. He goes, no, about who's Mike? Well, I played AA hockey. Now I play AAA. Now I'm playing in Canada. He goes, Mike, I don't care about hockey. I want to know who Mike is. Well, then I did. And the whole day we didn't talk hockey, but we talked about life. And, hey, do you have a brother and sister? Yeah. And he was such a great person. Like, here I was, and I needed pictures, and I didn't want to bother him. So we didn't have the phones back then. So here I am with Wayne Gretzky. I called my dad after. I just spent the whole day, like 7 hours with Wayne, the best guy in the world. And my father said, did you talk hockey? I said, not once. Not once. But a miracle thing happened. It can only be in a commercial. So this is the kind of guy Wayne Gretzky is. Never played with him. In fact, he gave me I waited for him after a game when I was older. I go, Wayne, that was the guy that was with you. He goes, I remember. He goes, I need a stick for my brother. So I got a Wayne Gretzky stick. He gave me a hug. He says, hey, always great to see you. So I played against him, and he was with the LA Kings, and I was with the Buffalo Sabres. But the coolest part, just about that is just the kind of person he is. And we were on the course, and he hit his ball to the right, and we couldn't find it. I can't even exaggerate this story. My former agent can tell you. So we're walking, and I'm walking with Wayne. He goes, Mike, I can't find my ball, but don't pick it up. So we see it in the woods, and this kid is walking with this hockey stick, and about 13 years old, 12, and he's by the fence on the opposite side of the golf course. By these nicer homes were there. And he's looked at Wayne like, that's Wayne Gretzky. This kid was that. He looked, and I go, that's Wayne. And Wayne said, he goes, will you sign my autograph? He goes, I can't sign it through the fence, but here's a ball. It says the Wayne Gretzky golf ball. And the kid had that ball, and he ran home. Yeah. That just kind of, so when I learned from these people, they're not like great athletes. They're really good people. Like some of the guys I played with. Hey, what kind of a person is he? An amazing person. Great hockey player, but good people.
Because that's going to tell him more about you and who you are when he's kind of getting to know. He didn't care. Okay, I do this, I do that. No. I want to know about Mike Hartman. And I had a very similar situation. I was in an interview situation, and on my resume, as a part of all my sales achievements, I had my certification as a health coach from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And almost at the very start of the interview, the guy goes, he asked me a question. I started to talk. He goes, you know what? Wait. He goes, what is this Institute for Integrative Nutrition? Health coach? What is that? And that's when I lit up, apparently, and just started sharing all about that journey and what that meant and what I do. And we hardly ever talked about, or we barely talked about any of the other sales achievements or the numbers or the successes or the rank that I had been at these different companies in these sales positions. And I wound up getting the job. And I even asked him later on afterwards, I was like, why, we didn't even talk about this and this. He goes, I want to know who you are. I didn't want you telling me, oh, I did this, I did that, I did this. I get that. Anybody can talk about that. But when you shared with me from your heart, I could see that the health coaching was from your heart. Mm-hmm. And that's where he learned what makes me tick. And that's why. What makes you tick is why you're, one of the pro NHL players. What makes you tick is why your life has then taken the journey of how, through creating better life training, owning your own gym, writing a book, working with Fortune 500 companies, working with kids, through, you work with like young, athletes?
Yeah, we do like a e-learning course for parents,
Mm-hmm.
and then we help them get ready to play. So it's more of a learning program than I do. It's in like an e-learning program for athletes and families together.
But you're probably even more successful with that because of the humanity which makes up Mike Hartman. They can see that you're not doing this as a means to an end. You're doing this because of your heart's passion to help and inspire others. And yeah, because you wound up being, something and becoming something that millions of boys want, I just see, again, my thing with when other people have achieved something at a level that I want to achieve it, that gives me hope. Because
Right.
when I say, if anything is possible for anyone, I mean anything is possible for anyone.
I agree.
But you got to dismantle limiting beliefs and whatever is blocking you from really showing up 1%, 100% to make that happen.
Right.
So
Right.
Go ahead. You were about to say something.
No, I said that's true. But like I said too, if sometimes it doesn't always work out your way. And I believe there has to be a little, people say, well, there's no luck. There isn't any luck in it. But, if I would have got drafted by the Montreal Canadiens that year, they were stacked with players and they had their minor league team. Guys been there for 8 years, not making it. I went to the right place.
Yeah.
The right team. So that's sometimes it's timing. And that's how it worked for me. I went to a team that had a lot of older players that struggled the year before. So they brought some younger blood in. And I made it as a 19-year-old because there was room. But you could be amazing as a professional athlete. There was players better than me in minor league teams, but I was in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but you also paid attention to the opportunities and you actualized on the opportunities, because throughout my entire adult life, I have a similar story of, at this point in time, I was, dealing with this, but I happen to have had this in my life. I happen to be asking these particular questions, and this happened to be a place where I landed myself. So I paid attention to these opportunities.
Right.
And instead of, or ignoring them. And I think paying attention to opportunities when they present themselves, especially when you're asking questions, is key to moving in that direction of where you want to be along this journey of things that are supposed to happen for you. And everything happens for you and through you, not to you. That's the victim mentality. And I also have a say, like when you do nothing about a situation long enough, the universe has a way of presenting an explosion that forces you to make a left or a right turn.
Right.
And again, like you talked about, going through a divorce, and you have 2 kids that are now adults. Many trials and tribulations, but again, that could have been experienced in that realm of living. But it's like, still, when you look at you, I see your mindset and your heart set, and you're one who's living a fulfilled life.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
On purpose.
Yeah.
And yeah. And if there's one thing that you could say, one piece of advice that you could give from your heart to everybody watching, living a purposeful life, like what would you say?
Well, there's a few different things, but
Okay.
One thing I could say is,
write them down, folks.
Number 1, never lose sight of the dream, whatever that is. Number 2, sometimes that journey, everyone takes a different journey getting there. What might be good for you may not be good for me. And some people get there easier than others. Some people have connections. There's people that I know, because they know somebody, it's opened more doors for them. Never lose sight of who you are. And if you make it, stay level. Never get too high, never get too. And if you don't make it, like, let's say there's 9 players on a baseball team, and there's a million athletes. It's as long as you can say, I have done everything I could to do it, and I didn't take any shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference too. We don't talk about it a lot, but I remember there were kids going out and drinking when I was like 15, 14. And I said, no, I'm going to stay home. I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want to lose that. I sacrificed. And sometimes you have to do that. So I would take those points and give it your best. Don't compare yourself to anybody.
Right.
I realize people say to me, God, you're hard on yourself. I said, no, I'm realistic. I knew when I played on the best team in the world, the New York Rangers, we had the best. We have like we're an all-star team. Guys are in the Hall of Fame. A lot of players played on the Edmonton Oilers that won many cups. I played for the best leader ever in sports, one of the best, Mark Messier. And Glenn Anderson. I could name like a whole bunch of these players that people may not recognize. Other people, coaches. I played for the toughest coach in hockey, Mike Keenan. And I said I was just very happy to be a small piece of a big puzzle. Well, are you mad you didn't play a lot? I played 35 games on the championship team out of 80, almost lost my eye, had injuries. They were sitting me out towards the end. And I said, you know what? I look back and I said, man, I was a piece of history. I go back to New York City now. People never forget we're called the Black Aces. And I knew my role. And I knew that when I came in, I had to really be on. And if I was off, then I have a chance of going to the minors or a chance of anything, not playing. But I knew that's all I could do is give it everything I have. And I was so fortunate at the end to be on that team that they were trading a lot of players away. And they came to me and they said, because of your energy in the dressing room and because of the way you're bringing what you do every time, you're a very good insurance policy for the New York Rangers. So we're keeping you. People would say, were you mad? I go, hell no. I said, they wanted me in a role and I served that role. And I look back on it now and I have some of the best relationships with these players. We had our 25th reunion not too long ago. And I look back and said, I sometimes pinch myself. Boy, I played in Madison Square Garden with some of the best guys in the world that year. And I'm just a little guy from Oak Park, Michigan that had a dream. And next thing you know, you're in New York City playing for the New York Rangers. I said, hey, I took it and I sucked it all in and loved it.
Something you just said, like giving life 100%. It don't matter what you're doing. It don't matter what you're doing. Give your life 100%.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Well, Mike, this has been absolutely phenomenal. This has been an empowered conversation, folks.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
It's been an honor to have you, and thank you so much for being on.
Thank you,
guys, you know what? 3:30 p.m. today, my girlfriend Siobhan and I, we have food therapy. We're making nice cream. Instead of ice cream, it's nice cream. So you're going to have to join us today live at 3:30 for food therapy. I'm super excited about that. And Mike, I know in the show notes, I have like the link to your website and ways to get a hold of you. Do you have any special offer, or what is one unique way that people can connect with Mike Hartman and work with you?
Well, the one thing they could do, I would appreciate if they go to the podcast, The Mike Hartman Show.
Yep, we got that. Yeah, I've got that.
And if anybody wants to reach out to me and they want a course, they can go to hartman.academy, no.com, leave a message. We have resources there, and I'll give you a free course if and it will help you. I'm not going to ask questions. Hey, I saw you on the Stefani show, Deep for Rick and Licious, and send me a link. No questions asked.
And you said it correct.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. As long as they go to the Mike Hartman Show podcast, they could leave a review if they like it. And that's it. That's all. And they're going to see you on there not too long.
Yeah, like what, June 24th? Well, I don't think they're going to see me, but they're going to hear me.
They're going to hear you. They see a lot of you now. They're going to hear you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm super excited about that. Well, Mike, again, thank you so much for joining me. Stay here. Don't leave, like when I end the broadcast. But guys, thank you so much for joining another phenomenal episode of Empowered Conversations. See you in a couple hours and see you next week.